During the time of Elisha, Israel had a powerful neighbour, the king of Syria, and from time to time the king of Syria harassed the Israelites. He was like a bully, a big bully in the playground. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honourable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valour, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel." Then the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, "Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy." And it happened, when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to kill and make alive, that this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel with me." So it was, when Elisha the man of God heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel." Now Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became furious, and went away, and said, "Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me, and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and wave his hand over the place, and heal the leprosy. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage. But his servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he says to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides, and came and stood before them. And he said, "Indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now, therefore, please take a gift from your servant." But he said, "As the Lord lives, before whom I stand, I will receive nothing." And he urged him to take it, but he refused. So Naaman said, "Then, if not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for your servant will no longer offer either burnt offering or sacrifice to other gods, but to the Lord. Yet in this thing may the Lord pardon your servant. When my master goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow in the temple of Rimmon, when I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing." And he said to him, "Go in peace." So he departed from him a short distance. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, "Look, my master has spared Naaman this Syrian, while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as the Lord lives, I will run after him and take something from him." So Gehazi pursued Naaman. When Naaman saw him running after him, he got down from his chariot to meet him and said, "Is all well?" And he said, "All is well. My master has sent me, saying, 'Indeed, just now 2 young men of the servants of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. So Naaman said, Please, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them on ahead of him. When he came to the citadel, he took them from their hand and stored them away in the house. Then he let the men go, and they departed. Now he went in and stood before his master. Elisha said to him, Where did you go, Gehazi? And he said, Your servant didn't go anywhere. Then he said to him, Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to receive money and to receive clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and oxen, male and female servants? Therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from his presence, leprous, as white as snow. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together from 2 Kings chapter 5. This remarkable story of the grace of God towards one of the enemies of Israel, Naaman the Syrian. But the story begins by saying that the Lord raised up Syria. The Lord gave victory to Syria by the hand of this commander, Naaman. The Lord is superintending all the affairs of the nations. And the Lord Jesus commented on this story, that there were many lepers in Israel in the time of Elisha. But the only one that was healed was Naaman, this Syrian. How come he came to be healed and the others weren't? Well, Naaman had raided Israel and taken captive a young girl. And this girl had become a slave to Naaman's wife. She'd heard as a child of the prophet in Israel, and she believed the stories that she was told. She had the faith of a child, that God could do these things. She knew any problem could be sorted out by God. And so she talks about this with Naaman's wife. And so she talks about it with her husband, and her husband talks about it with the king. And Naaman has such high standing, and this leprosy is really a very severe impediment to him, that the king writes a letter to the king of Israel. Now, diplomatically, that's the appropriate thing to do for the head of one government to talk to the head of the other government. It becomes remarkable in this context in that so many times we read of the king of Syria harassing Israel, but this time he is seeking help. But it's a most outrageous request. Heal my servant from his leprosy. And the king of Israel says, Am I God to kill and to make alive? He tears his clothes. But there is a prophet in Israel, and he hears about it, and he attends to the matter. And Naaman goes to the prophet. He's outraged when he is told by a servant to wash in the Jordan River. But his servants urge Naaman to do what he was asked, and when he does so, he is cleansed. We have to humble ourselves before the living God to receive his bounty. He comes back to give thanks, but this is a gift from God, and Elisha refuses to take any payment. But Elisha's servant feels that it's only right that Naaman should pay, and we're poor. And so he goes and asks for some of the bounty that Naaman wanted to give. Consequently, Naaman's leprosy falls upon him, for greed is always a bad thing. But the other thing I find interesting is that Naaman, in his position, would be required to stand beside the king of Syria when he worships a false god. And Naaman knows that he will have to continue to do that. But Naaman knows that the God of Israel is the true God. And so, in anticipation, he seeks pardon from the Lord. The Lord knows our heart, and the Lord knows our circumstances, and the Lord has understanding. So, the man of God says, Go in peace.